Welcome to episode 12 of the Sensitive Soul Support Podcast. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning.
It's fun to be sharing our podcast on YouTube now. So just want to remind everyone listening, if they would find it interesting to watch us, instead of just listening, that you can find us on our YouTube channel, which is in the notes, right, for the show.
Yeah, it's Sensitive Soul Support Podcast. You just look up on YouTube and we'll pop up.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about how we met, how our sisterhood began, and everything that brought us to, I'm trying not to move because I know of the feedback, that brought us to this book. This book is How We Met. Show us your cover. Do you have your cover? So Women Who Impact was how Jen and I met. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And part of our journey to get to this place was us really, it came from motherhood. It came from both of us feeling really lost and disconnected from ourselves in the journey of becoming mothers. So how should we start, Jen?
I think maybe just acknowledging that we had similar stories, yet they were very different. And that when I read your story in the book, I was like, I really relate to this woman. I feel like I could connect with her because there was something in your story that felt familiar.
Yeah.
And that's, probably part of that empathic connection of just like, oh yes, she is like me. She feels things like me. So I want to talk to her,
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing how valuable that is, having someone in your life that you can share things with and they get it. Like, you get this sense of, I am not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who overthinks and feels so much all the time. There are other people out there that do. And, having that support, I mean, it's amazing how much we've been able to lean on each other and support each other through the past. How long has it been?
I think this was published in, I want to say, 2018. It was November of 2018.
Wow. Okay, so like 3 years.
Yeah, a little over 3 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you said it's like that empath connection, because I agree. Like, there were so many authors in this book, so many brilliant, beautiful women have written and contributed stories to Women Who Impact, which, by the way, is from Kate Butler. These are her books, and this is her project to bring women together through memoirs type stories. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, right, they can go and Google Kate Butler and learn more about how to become. And we became #1 international best-selling authors through Amazon, which is pretty awesome. So just want to shout out to Kate, because she's the one who ultimately, brought us together. And like you said, we've been in each other's lives for 3 years. And we always laugh because we've only actually physically, literally been in the same space together like a handful of times, less than a handful of times. It's like crazy, right? So the empath connection is what sort of brought us together through the book project. So I think that one of the things we both recognize is that the woman who wrote this story is very different from the woman who we are today. Like, when I read my story, and I have to be transparent, like, I really haven't read my story, I was telling you, in like years. I don't remember the last time I actually read this story. And it brought me to tears today, reading it before we went on today. It literally brought me to tears. And it brought me back to that time in my life when I was so incredibly overwhelmed as a mom. I'm not going to say that I'm not overwhelmed as a mom today, but it is a whole different experience these days because I have so many more tools and I have so much more awareness around what makes me overwhelmed, why I'm overwhelmed. And so much of the work I've done on myself and the healing I've done has really helped me just be able to not just manage, but really thrive as a mother. I still have days where I'm like losing
Sure.
my shit and I want to just run away. But for the most part, it's really manageable
Yeah.
being an empath, being highly sensitive of two children who are also highly sensitive and empaths. So, um, what if I started a little about sharing my story and then we'll move and have you share a bit about your story? And
Sure.
one of the things that we're going to be doing is we are each going to share our full memoir or full story in our new drum roll. I don't want to move because I don't want feedback. Our new Facebook group. Woo! So Jen and I now have a Facebook group solely for our listeners. It is called Sensitive Soul Support Podcast.
No, there's no podcast. It's just
No,
sensitive soul support.
Sensitive Soul Support. So we are on Facebook. I'm going to share screen for anyone watching us on YouTube for just a moment to show you what our group looks like. So it's called Sensitive Soul Support. And when you click there, you'll see Jen and my faces so that you know you're in the right place. And we put a little welcome to you here already. We'd love to hear from you which episode we've done that spoke to you the most and why. So we'd love to hear from all of you and get to know you all better, because we realize that this is an ongoing conversation that we want to continue. And we would love to have more engagement from our listeners. We'd love to be able to support you all even more by hearing from you. What are we talking about that you want to know more about? Or what have we not talked about that you want us to talk about? And we really want your voice to be part of the conversation. So please consider, if you're on Facebook, joining us in this group and just letting us know how the podcast is supporting you or what you want from us. We have all of our episodes uploaded here. Thank you so much, Jen, for putting all these in here. So all the episodes are also on here as audio. And then moving forward, we're going to also post the video, the YouTube version as well. So if you wanted to watch us, you can. So hopefully you guys will all check out our Facebook group. And each of us will post and share our story. We'll read it to you because we find that there's so much relatability that can help you in parts of our stories. So my story is called Found. And what I have on the back cover is, it says, in this special edition of Women Who Impact, we are invited to co-author Stacey Friedman's journey as a new mother, bearing witness to the joys and struggles of life with two children under 2. Though she loves her life as a mom, she ends up losing herself in the greater world of expectations that includes the dangerous belief that self-care is selfish. In this authentic and relatable account, Stacey challenges women everywhere to take a look in the mirror. She inspires those who feel lost to find themselves again by taking the first step. This story is a rally cry for mothers everywhere, a plea to put themselves first. So that was kind of the back cover, right, of what the story is about. And in my story, I dedicate it to the beautiful mothers out there. May you continue to shine love and light on your little ones while remembering to leave a little for yourself too. So without going into like reading the story, I just want to say, like, for me, becoming a new mother as an empath and a highly sensitive person, it brought a whole set of challenges that I was not prepared for because I was not aware that I was a highly sensitive person or an empath. And when I had my daughter, everything was easy. I had prepared for her. I had read all the books. I had all the time in the world to get myself ready for my daughter's arrival. And she was just a very easy baby that first year. But it was when I had my son, my second child, that it was like a completely different overwhelm for me, because now there were 2 kids. And as the empath that I was, being there for my daughter, I was just always there. I always gave her all my attention. I gave her all of me. I was so attuned to her needs. I could just run to her as soon as she needed me. But when I had my son, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I can't be super attuned to her anymore, because now I have to be attuned to him too. And I felt that constant stress and overwhelm of wanting to be there for each of my children equally and not missing a beat with either of my children, because as an empath, I'm so tuned into their needs. I'm so tuned into their feelings. And so I could sense with my daughter, anytime she needed something, I was right there. Right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. That was how I was operating as the mother. But then you threw another kid in the mix, and he had, some allergies as an infant, and he had some issues as an infant that Emma didn't. And so it was like a lot of attention on him, and then I would feel bad that I wasn't spending enough. So I felt this constant ping, ping, back and forth, ping pong, just never having a moment to take a breath for myself, because I was always attuned to my children. What does this one need? Okay, now she needs me, and now he needs, and it was just like really overwhelming day in and day out, trying to be there for both these incredible humans that I birthed into the world. And some of that was because I had these really massively unrealistic expectations of what a good mother is and does, right? Some of it was that. Some of it was my perfectionistic tendencies. And some of it was I'm a highly sensitive person and an empath. So there's sort of like, I see it like as three different things when I look back on why it was so hard for me at this time in my life, because of those three separate things. So it wasn't just one thing, but being a highly sensitive person and hearing my children cry, just hearing their cries as babies, right? Like learning to be okay with my child crying, like infant crying. Like that was something I couldn't do. Like, God forbid she should cry. God forbid she should be in pain. God forbid she should feel wet. God forbid she should feel cold. God forbid she should feel hungry, right? Like the highly sensitive part of me would be overstimulated by the crying and the noise, and the two of them together with the noises, right? Like that itself just was like a lot on my nervous system. But also the empathic part, and the part that didn't have boundaries yet, the part of me that didn't understand boundaries yet, that was, what made for me being a mom to two young children who were very, who had high sensitivity themselves. So I was feeling that from both of them. That was really hard. That was really, really hard. So, as moms, and it's gotten so much easier. It's not easy, but it's gotten easier through the years, because I have learned how to manage and regulate my own energy, which was a tool I didn't have at that time. I was just in the thick of it. And Jen, I remember this is like a trauma that I remember. I need to heal this, because I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot this even happened. I clearly remember one evening, and this is when my kids were a bit older. Maybe they were, say, 4 and 5 or 3 and 4. I vividly remember I was sitting on the floor upstairs. Our laundry room is upstairs in our home. I was sitting on the floor outside the laundry room. I had broken. I was so overwhelmed. I had my son in his room to my left and my daughter in her room to the right. And they were both either crying or really hyper or something. But the amount of energy that was happening around me, I was literally on the floor. I was crying. I had lost it. I was screaming. I think I was screaming at them. I was screaming at God, like crazy things. It was like I had lost, I had flipped my lid and gone to like dark night of the soul, like crazy place. And I remember just shouting out like, I can't take this anymore, and I can't do this, and I don't know what to do, and you guys have to, like, I was just like, I was a lunatic. But I just remember being on the floor and feeling completely powerless and completely helpless, and looking to the left and looking to the right, and being so lost in that moment of, I don't know how to pull my shit together, and my kids need me right now, and I don't know what to do. I was completely overwhelmed. I guess my husband must have been out of town or he was out, and it was just me with them, and I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. And I imagine, like, oh my God, what did that do to them to see their mother sitting on the floor, crying and screaming? They were babies, they were little kids. What did they know? They were just being themselves. But I'm sure that was a really scary experience for them as well. Um, I wish I had me today to coach me back then, because what I would have done is I would have sat next to that puddle of tears woman and put my arm around her and rubbed her back and said, "You're doing just fine.
Right.
You're going to be fine. Just let's take a deep breath together and
Yeah.
let's tell ourselves, like, they're both fine. They're going to be okay. Like, everything's okay. Let's breathe together.
Yeah.
Let's breathe together, mama. You're doing great." And I didn't know how to talk to myself that way at that time. It was just go, 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 crash. Go, 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 crash. That was what life was like. There was no stopping, tuning in, getting clear on what I needed. There was no adjusting expectations. It was just, that was the life I was living for a few years. And my story goes on to explain how I got to my breaking point, how things had to change for me, because I got to that low, low point. You would have thought this story would have been it, but it actually took more for me to get to that low, low point to realize this is not working. Something is not right here. I shouldn't feel this way all the time. And the story shares what happened to me to get me to that point of realizing that I couldn't do it all alone, that I needed help, admitting to myself that I needed help, and not like surrendering to that I wasn't perfect and I couldn't do it all perfectly. Again, I see it so clearly now. It was the expectations, it was the perfection, and it was the being an empath and a highly sensitive person. So that part of me that needs everything I got this, I got it all, I got it, I don't need your help, I got it. That part of me couldn't keep up anymore. And I had to surrender and say, I can't do this anymore. Something has to change. And at that time, I had no idea what an empath was or a highly sensitive person. I was not aware of myself. I was not doing the work, capital T, capital W. I wasn't doing it back then, but I did get a whisper. There was a whisper there. Now my whispers are like fierce roars because I've done so much work on myself. But back then, they're like these faint whispers of like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of you. What can you do? One thing, one step. That was like what I heard. One step. And then my story shares like what I did and how that just, oh my God, it was like a snowball effect. I did the one thing and it was like, oh my God, wow, I could see myself. I could see clearly. And then it was like another thing I could do then for myself and another thing. And then I became like the freaking queen of self-care, right? The queen from coming from a place where self-care I could do, but it wasn't a priority and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't thoughtful. It was just like, I could do it here and there. But anyway, so again, I want to share the whole story, and I'm going to do that in our Facebook group so people can listen in. It's not that long. It's only like 7 pages, but I think it's a testament to how far we can come and like what's possible for us when we're given a little support and we take a little bit of help and we decide that like we're worth it. We're worth it. We want more for ourselves, and learning and researching and becoming more educated and asking for support and letting go of this shit that brings us down and drains us, and saying no to those things, learning boundaries, right? Like what is possible when we start to take the steps towards honoring who we are and our desires. Because I didn't want to live that way. I didn't want to be that burnt out, disconnected, crazy mom. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be present for my kids. But I was looking in all the wrong places. I needed to look inside myself.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. That was a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what just happened there. It just went into a
But your
flow.
vulnerability is, it's a beautiful thing because it helps others in feeling less alone and knowing, like, not to put you on a pedestal and that you don't have everything figured out. However, you have a lot of really great tools and gifts that you can share with others to help them. And you know this because they worked for you. And I think what definitely drew me to your story and was that sense of burnout, that disconnect and that sense of overwhelm and not really knowing where to go from there. Because motherhood was so overwhelming that you just lost yourself in it, but I definitely had a different type of story in that, at least what I wrote about here was, when I got pregnant with Griffin, he's my 6-year-old, I already had 3 children and my oldest was 13. And when I had my kids, it was kind of like this plan, like, okay, I'm going to put my stuff, what I want, on the back burner, and it's going to be about the kids. But once they're all in school, then it's my time. I get to do what I want, right? So finding out that I was pregnant was very unexpected, and it totally just turned my world upside down because I had this in my mind. I'm going to get back to myself. I'm so close. My youngest was 4. Like, I was so close, right? I'm going to get on my self-care again. And then when I found out I was pregnant, it was like, no, that's not going to happen. And my brain did not handle that well. So, and I'm being vulnerable and transparent. I adore my children. Love Griffin. So glad that he was gifted to me and that I have had the privilege of being his mother. But accepting that was a part of my journey was not easy on me. I was 38 when I had him, and I was 25 when I had my first. So I never thought I would be having children at 38. And that was really hard for me to accept. So, and I moved out into the middle of nowhere and left kind of my support system that, like, my parents, my in-laws, they helped me a lot with the kids. So when I moved an hour away, that wasn't accessible anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went into a deep depression, and I mean, it got bad where I just was in bed all the time. I was overwhelmed by so much, but I was functioning enough to get my kids' needs met enough. Mm-hmm. And, I got to a point where it was like, my nervous system was so inflamed and so out of whack that I just didn't know even what to do to pull myself out of this deep, dark hole I was in, where I just wanted to lay in bed all the time. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. I did enough so that people didn't notice so much. But isn't it amazing how we're good at that? Like, putting on this facade, showing up for the things that we need to show up for, so everybody thinks we're okay, because we don't want anybody to worry about us, God forbid. So that it was shocking to people when they found out, because on the surface, it didn't look like I was depressed. I was showing up for what I needed to, right? So when I gave myself permission to go on a vacation and do something with my family, just getting out of the bubble I was in and getting out in nature was unbelievable what an effect it had on me and my nervous system. I literally cried for days and I didn't even know why. So it was like this release that my body was just like, oh my gosh, you have to get this out. You cannot hold this anymore. And that was the turning point for me, where once I released and cried for days and got out of my bubble, got out of that dark routine I was in, or lack of, it opened my eyes to so much. And then I was able to take steps to empower myself. But, you know, the one cool thing in the story that I share is that my business bloomed out of that experience too.
As did mine.
Because once we were able to work through all of that and start to bring our self-care a priority and come into a place with ourselves, our intuition emerged. And we had the ability to actually listen to it and take action on it. And that, I think, is why Divine Feminine, you know, all of that is so, it's a big passion for me, because we all have this beautiful gift inside of us, but when it's buried under our shit, we can't access it. And you see, I guess for me, like, using my gift to serve other people, it gives me life. It gives me purpose. And I need that outside of being a mother. I love my role as a mother. My kids mean the world to me, but being a stay-at-home mom for 20 years without a passion really took a toll on me. So, you know, I mean, I have to say my passion emerged in those last 4 to 5. So I don't want to, but I was, you know, I'm still a stay-at-home mom, let's be real. But either way, being a stay-at-home mom has beautiful, you know, pros. It's a gift, right? However, when you do not acknowledge that you have other needs and passions, it's dangerous. And some people don't have that. Their passion is being a mother to their children, and that is enough for them. And that is a beautiful thing, but it wasn't for me. And I had this story in my head that I had to be a stay-at-home mom because of the conditioning that my mom stayed at home. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it just was this story in my mind that, like, I have to be home and I have to give my kids all my attention. But my intuition was saying, no, you need things for yourself too. You have gifts that cannot be used in parenting. They have to be used somewhere else. And you're not going to feel fulfilled and feel alive to your fullest potential unless you dip into these gifts and you use them to help other people too. So that was, I think, the biggest thing for me in my story that I like to use to help others is like helping you, you know, access your intuition and acknowledge it and take action on it. And we all deserve that.
Absolutely. What a story, Jen. Wow. I feel so much compassion for us as mothers, for all mothers, whatever the stories are that we bring into motherhood. And most of them, I would say, you know, from the work that I do, they're all subconscious. They're not even conscious stories that we're even aware of.
Yeah.
So it's just getting a little bit more curious with ourselves, no matter what stage of motherhood we may be in. And even it's beyond motherhood. It's like whoever we're caring for, because there might be people listening who are not moms, but you're still caregivers. You have patients that you care for. You have clients you care for. You have nieces or nephews you care for. You have parents you care for.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm sure everyone listening, who the hell would be listening to this podcast that's not interested in this stuff, is not an empath, is not helping people in some way in their life. So
yeah,
like compassion for ourselves and curiosity around what are the stories we tell ourselves what are the stories we bring into the work that we do in the world, whether it's being a mother or working with clients or whatever, right? Um, that's a big part of it too. And like, no one freaking talks about that. Like, no one fucking talked about when you become a mom and start your family, what stories are you going to be like? What stories are there? Like, what kind of a mother do you want to be? And what do you think a good mother is? What about a good enough mother? Have you ever explored that concept? Do you know what a good enough mother is? No one talks to you about this stuff when you're about to start a family. At least no one, I wasn't hanging around with people who had those conversations. Maybe they
No.
happen, but I did not have anyone around me talking this way. So I could go into it like I said, with the first child, it was like everything was planned. It was by the book, read all the things, everything was organized. Boom, Emma came perfect. Then Jake came. It was like I didn't have the conversation about, well, what happens when you get another one? What
Yeah.
happens when you have two? And then what happens when you have three and four? Like we just weren't, I was not a part of those conversations. So I did bring into my experience, the expectation that to be selfless is right. That's a good mother. A selfless mother is a good mother.
Mm,
That's really good. These are the cultural norms that we sometimes, I think, get caught up in is, oh my God, this mother is so amazing. Do you know what she did for her kid? Or do you know how many hours she drove them to their dance competition and she was supposed to do this, but instead she drove her kid for 8 hours? Like, what a good mom. What a good mom. It seems to me that it's part of the cultural conversation that, and we're changing it now. I'm seeing it's changing a lot, which is so important that it is. Cause, and everything's like a pendulum swing. Like our moms were really the selfless generation. And then it's like, I think we are now like, wait a minute, what about me? Let's move into more self-care. So like, who knows, in like 2 generations, it might swing back to, oh, we can't be these overindulgent self-care moms. Now we have to be selfless again, because everything's always a swing, right? But I just think that, we had these models of selfless moms and grandmoms, and like they didn't have a lot of choices
right.
at that time. So they were those selfless moms. And so the story was that they were the best because they were so selfless. But a lot of them, and your story and your vulnerability, Jen, and sharing about the depression that you experienced is so fucking important to talk about, because I bet a lot of our moms were really depressed, but they showed up every day for their
Yeah.
kids, and they showed up when their husbands got home from work, right back in that day, and they had a smile on and they looked presentable and they looked like things were fine.
Yeah.
And so it looked like they were the happiest people. But what if they weren't? What if they were very depressed? What if they were feeling very unfulfilled? They had nowhere to go. They didn't have options. They couldn't just get a part-time job and, find a little something for themselves, because life was different then. And now that we have so much more opportunity, not nearly enough, but we have so much more than I think our mothers did.
Yeah.
you know we have more available to us, and I'm so grateful for that. But we have to change the idea that the more selfless you are as a mother, the better the mother you are, because I think a lot of women can get caught up in that. And I think it's
100%.
on us to change that story and change that narrative. That
And knowing that the modeling is where most of the work really is in teaching our children. So when we are modeling to them that taking care of ourselves is a priority, we're teaching them to do the same. You can't sacrifice everything you want for your kid and expect them to not do the same.
yes,
And it can break your heart if you see your kids doing something where you're like, no, I did all the things so this wouldn't happen. And it's like, no, you didn't. You sacrificed everything you wanted. And that's not a good message. And I have to say, like, my kids have literally watched me take my power back and watched an entire transformation, a journey of me going from this unfulfilled, depressed mom to a mom that's serving in the world and feels really good about sharing her gifts. And that has only positively impacted them. They respect me for that. They look up to me for that. They tell me that, and how would I have known that if I was still hanging on to that story that my desires don't matter?
Mm. And one of the things too is like you're giving them permission, like you're giving your children that permission so that they can also, if they want to be a mother one day, that they can have something for themselves too, that they have permission to explore their desires. But, desires, that's a whole other really interesting topic, right? Like a lot of women are very disconnected from their desires, and especially highly sensitives and empaths, because we're overwhelmed so often.
Yeah.
We're overwhelmed a lot by the world. It can be really hard not just to hear the desire inside, but to take action and start stepping towards the desire, because um, our lives can feel, again, this very overstimulating and very overwhelming. And
And
we can
fear,
feel
fear is,
tired and
I
not
have
have
a
the
very
energy to pursue a desire
interesting,
or a passion.
yeah. And I, like I said, I have an interesting relationship with fear. Fear has been more of what my paralyzation has come from. Not as much nervous system overwhelm as just fear.
Yeah. And I think that fear of showing up, being visible and being vulnerable, I think a lot of us have that same kind of trait, because I think growing up, we were so highly attuned to others' needs.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, it was like keeping the peace or just keeping things calm, either because we were empaths and we wanted our moms to and our dads to be calm and cool, or which is more of a trauma response, because we didn't want our systems to go into overload if there wasn't peace, and then our parents weren't peaceful, we'd feel that too. It's funny, like I kind of did this little, I think I did an article on the Medium. It was like the empath dilemma. It's like we sometimes are rescuing others, but it's actually because we need the calm from them being rescued. It seems like sometimes it's like we're these compassionate healers, and we want to help people so much, but it's really also sort of subconsciously selfish, because if I can help them with their problem, then it's less burden on my nervous system and my emotional boundaries. So it's really interesting, right? And I think a lot of us had that growing up, where we were so attuned to other people's feelings that we didn't ask ourselves, what do we need or what do we want? Because we were so naturally inclined to be so connected to other people. We just thought about their needs and their desires. And so for a lot of
And that,
moms who are empaths, we don't know so much. We've never really practiced listening to
that's
our own
definitely
desires.
a part of that good girl conditioning that
Yeah.
most of us have experienced, right? Just go
Yeah.
be quiet, do what you need, you're supposed to do. Your needs are not anywhere on that priority list when you're taught how to be a good girl.
Yeah.
Or a good kid for that matter, right? People pleasing can really mess with your ways of identifying your own needs too, because you just do what people
Yeah.
ask you to do and you don't even think about it.
For some people, that's trauma response too. Not all people, but that's the fawn response, right? There's the fight,
Yes.
flight, freeze, but then there's the
100%.
fawn response. So it's something to just, again, be curious about. It's not for all people, but for some people, that people pleasing tendency, yeah, it's trauma response. And there's some really awesome healing that can be done around that. So it's not done in that way.
Yeah.
There are some people who just genuinely really enjoy helping and being there for others and being of service. But some people, it goes beyond that.
And if
Yeah.
you're feeling resentful, then the answer. If you're feeling resentful, if you're doing things, but you're feeling resentful and you're like, how could they ask me to do that? That means you're putting your needs on the back burner.
Yeah. Absolutely. My mind's racing because we're reading Atlas of the Heart in book club now. And I'm like, what was resentment? What was the definition of resentment? Because we're going through all the emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unmet needs, really.
Yep.
Unmet needs. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's about what we're getting at today is that being a mother can be very challenging, period. Being a mother who's highly sensitive / an empath can be really, really challenging. And being a mother who's an empath and a highly sensitive person who's raising children who are also either highly sensitive or is really, really, really challenging. And there's so many other things that we haven't even addressed, or like neurodiversity, and like there's like a million other things that make motherhood even more challenging. But just trying to delineate like the layers of why it's so freaking important, no matter which layer you relate to, that as a mother, you have to make time to step away. You have to leave the energy of your home to rejuvenate and renew, which is so cool because I'm wearing this adorable hat today that my sister knitted for me that she gave me when we went away this past weekend. So I did a little 3-day, 2-night retreat with my big sister. And oh my goddess, I needed it so badly. And it was just waiting for the right time. And it finally happened. And when you even can take 2 hours to leave your home and then come back, we know as HSPs, we have to have time alone.
Absolutely.
To be able to renew, to be able to center, to be able to come back to our own energy, and maybe have a shot at figuring out, what do I need right now? What's my desire? We cannot do it when we are amongst the people all the time. We have to make opportunity and time to step away. Now, not everyone can take off for 2 nights and 3 days and go to the Miraval while their husband watches their kids. Not everyone can do that. When I can't do that, I just say to my family, Mom's feeling overwhelmed. I need to have a timeout. I just use those words because my kids get it easily. I need a time to myself, a timeout. I'll be back in an hour, and I will go and sit in my husband's office and shut the door and pull down the blinds and watch TV for a half hour. Some days it's just that. It's just I need I need an escape from all the energy and all the stimulation.
Yeah.
So it could just be you step away and go watch TV for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be you go on a retreat, but highly recommend that if you're not planning a retreat for yourself every so often, regularly, you're missing out on some very important self-care and nourishment that you need as an empath or a highly sensitive person. So wherever you can find it, it's great. It's good enough. Whatever you can find.
You can just walk in a park. Like, it doesn't even have to be, something you have to spend a ton of money on. If that's an issue, you can literally just go to a park or start making a list of places in the area that you've wanted to see and just start going. It's simple things you could do. It doesn't have to be so extravagant if that's not within reach.
Yeah. And you can't take your kids with you.
No.
Because I know a lot of women I work with, they'll take the break, but they take the kids. I'm like, that's not what we're going for here. No, your kids, I know your kids will want to do that workout with you, but no, this is just for you. You're going to do that 15 minutes of yoga, and your daughter is not doing it with you. She's with your husband. And then later in the day, if she wants to do it with you, do it again with her for 15 minutes. But your 15-minute yoga practice on your video, that's for you, only you, because you can't connect to yourself and renew if you've got little ones around or children around or others that you care for around. You just can't do it.
And I want to acknowledge that can be really challenging at first. You will most likely experience guilt. And
that's what I want to talk about, mom guilt.
Yeah, like
we should talk about that in another episode.
I agree. It's simply like a muscle. You've got to build over time. You have to learn how to sit, just like that last episode. You have to learn to sit in those uncomfortable feelings, and you have to learn how to change that dialogue in your mind when it's telling you to be guilty, that you're supposed to be there meeting their needs. You have to, gain enough clarity to be able to be like, no, this is my time and I need this so I can be the best mom.
even if it's uncomfortable and it's
Yes.
painful to be in that
It
space.
gets easier over time as you build
Yeah.
that muscle. You learn how to release the guilt. You learn how to accept, because you see the benefits, and the benefits outweigh it. Like when you start to experience the benefits, you're like, why have I been doing this to myself for so long?
And to my family.
Yes.
Because then you're showing up cranky and tired
Yes.
and snippy, and that's not serving anyone. So
No.
the whole thing back to, back full circle, like self-care is the opposite of selfish. It's the gift that gives to everyone. Gives to everyone.
Truth.
So I want to talk about mom guilt on our next episode. That's a good
I
one.
love that.
Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
a hard one. Okay. So Jen, I love you. This was, I think, it was really fun to go back and revisit how we met and the book that we're in together and the stories that we wrote, and checking in with ourselves after all these years, like, wow, reading the story and saying, like, I remember when that was me, when that was my reality, and how far we've come. We're not Moses on the mountain, we're not perfect, but look how far we've come. It's pretty awesome to see what's possible, again, with the right support and a little bit of education, really understanding, having language for things, becoming more conscious of the things that you just never were before because you just didn't know. And that's the thing, when we don't know, we just don't know. We just don't know. So
don't be afraid to say yes when those opportunities fall into your lap, when you feel inspired by a person, instead of thinking, ugh, must be nice, get curious. Go talk to that person. Allow them to share something with you that inspires you rather than makes you envious. It's little things like that can really, really change your life. Allowing the people that inspire you, you're worthy of being in their world.
That's beautiful. And envy, okay, now I do remember this one. Envy is when we have an unmet need that we see in someone else. It's really about us. So I love what you just said. That was beautiful. So getting more curious about how we can serve ourselves while serving others.
Absolutely.
Okay, my friends. So we're going to read our stories and we're going to upload those into our Facebook group. We really do hope to hear from our listeners. Please join us. We're going to also be doing some different things in the Facebook group. We're going to have, Jen and I are planning now just different ways to interact with all of you. We might have some fun challenges or games going on in there. We might have some Q&As, so you can be live with us and kind of talk with us live. So yeah, we're really excited, and we hope that you will join the group and invite any friends that you have or family members that you think could also benefit from being part of this conversation that we're all having.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, bye everyone. See you next time.